Let's see it. Big money, everybody. Big money.
Who are you? Who do you serve?
I don't have Arabic subtitles.
All I have ever known in my life. Our land. Our customs. My family. Burns in the name of unification.
You are still a frog in a well, who knows nothing of the sea. The ocean's filled with new ships, but they all come from the same river. Greed. Power. Vengeance.
Oh, baby.
And you? Will you continue down that river? Or choose another path beyond what we see?
And we must look for it. Together. We must learn to trust. Rebuild.
And follow the blade.
Grapple hook return.
I said, who do you serve? We are the shadows.
That serve the light.
Ooh. November. What'd I tell you? I told you November. Damn, I'm good. What do you guys think? What's the feeling? What's the feeling? Where are you guys at? Zero gameplay. I said like 15,000 times that this was going to be a cinematic trailer, and I said don't expect gameplay. So I do not feel bad for you. I made it painfully clear. So one of the other things that was leaked and rumored was specifically that they were going to try to have the two protagonists start opposed, and that they were going to eventually have some sort of unification where their goals would be aligned and they'd have to figure out a way to work together and overcome their differences. And that seems to thematically be confirmed here. That seems to be at least what they're suggesting. Ships are shown, so I think they're going to bring back Odyssey's sailing stuff. It actually seems like they're going to probably lean pretty heavily into stealth as well. The grapple hook, maybe some variant of it from Syndicate, is making a return, it seems. So all of this seems to jive with what we've seen rumored for years at this point, which is that Naoi will be a character focused on stealth, much like Evie Fry. And then Yasuke will be the melee focused character that is all about getting in there and getting very physical with melee combat. So they'll have missions where it's maybe half stealth, half melee focused, and then you try to focus on one half of it at a time with each character specializing in it. I think, kind of like I said at the top of the stream, there's nothing in here that's like that shocking or surprising. Most of this has been rumored for years and it just seems to be confirmed. It's the most exciting thing I think will be when we see like engine upgrades and stuff like that to see what it actually looks like in practice. No Naruto run L. Can you imagine if that's how they started it, with just arms straight back running full speed? That would be kind of funny. Okay. They should have done that. Okay, now it feels like they missed an opportunity. Now it feels like they made a mistake. Oh, that's okay. That would have been so funny. That would have been so funny. There's another video on the Ubi account. Okay, let's see what the other video is. Who are Naoi and Yosuke? Let's see.
With our dual protagonists, we have two fantasy, the samurai and the shinobi. We want the player to experience both, and we cannot squeeze both fantasy into one character because samurai and shinobi came from a different social class. They have different lives, so we cannot really mix them together.
Which honestly could be the full explanation of why they chose to have two protagonists. It could be something as simple as, yeah, we're going to this setting. We want to have both the samurai experience and the shinobi experience. Let's put them both in the game, but we have to have two different characters. Like sometimes that's as simple as where it starts.
The historical character of Yasuke presented a really exciting opportunity for the narrative team. We approached it in the same way that so much of the work is done in Assassin's Creed, which is really in terms of research and history first. Not a lot is known about him, but what we did know, or we do know, is that he arrived in Japan in 1579, right when our game starts. And that he had relationships with some of the most interesting people in our setting, like Oda Nobunaga, the Portuguese, and Jesuits, which made it very sort of tantalizing and enticing from a narrative perspective to come in and start weaving these facts with story in between.
The more we read about the character, the more he was inspiring for us. He's a foreigner discovering Japan, and we thought it's the perfect fit because he's discovering Japan and you are discovering Japan also.
And on the flip side, we have
We're finally going to learn how we should pronounce it.
Naue, who comes
Naue, like Huawei, but Naue. Okay.
from the province of Iga, which is a remote mountainous area, fiercely independent, known as the birthplace of shinobi. So they're very contrasting perspectives that really expose a lot of different sides and facets of the era.
When Oda came, he completely destroyed Iga. You have Yasuke and Oda that coming to destroy the shinobi. So it can kind of create this interesting tension between two characters.
We were able to connect her to the province of Iga and the legendary Igan shinobi historical figure, Fujibayashi Nagato, who's her father in the game. So we understand why she has the skills that she has and the values that she learns from her father in the people of Iga, which are valor, benevolence, and wisdom. And as a young person still at the start of the game, we get to see now we acquire even more of that wisdom as the story unfolds.
And if you ask anybody, it's super clear that samurai will be combat heavy and a shinobi will be stealth heavy. It creates this distinction right away. Yasuke can fight with all his advantage, his stature, like he's a big guy. He can break door, he can fight multiple enemies, he can break armor. Compared to Naue, like her character and their outfit, it's really about being stealth, being unseen. She's the only one with the hidden blade, so they have clear advantage that
She's the only one with the hidden blade, so he will not have one. So presumably that means that like he will not have the full stealth finisher. It's not going to be like you know how in Syndicate you can kind of play with Jacob with stealth. He's not like, doesn't have the same skills and stuff to do it as well as Evie, but I mean, he just said that he doesn't have one. She's the only one with the blade, so it will be very, very different.
being stealth, being unseen, she's the only one with the
Yeah, only one.
Hidden Blade, so they have clear advantage that put them into the stealth and the combat, even if they can do a bit of both.
They're a really great pair together because on one side we have Naoe, who's very intense and passionate and determined woman who is very set on her goals. She's kind of got her heart on her sleeve and she'll say what she feels in the heat of the moment. And this intensity that she brings as a shinobi, but that she also brings to her relationship. And this balances very well with Yasuke, who is sort of a thoughtful, level head to Naoe's fiery passion. We really thought about somebody like Yasuke historically who was able to come to Japan and have the life that he did there, to enter service for Oda Nobunaga and achieve all of the things that he did. Like, what kind of person would go through all of this? So our Yasuke is very intelligent, thoughtful, and respectful of this culture that he encounters. And that makes him a very nice sort of counterpart to Naoe. He's a bit mysterious as well, and that's something we get to see unfold as the game progresses.
Is she an assassin or what they have said? I mean, they say like they're from the shadows. They're from like they've Samurai Creed Daylight. It's pretty clear. Like there will be the order is there, and the order has infiltrated both the samurai and the shinobi, and so they'll have to work together to cleanse the land of the order. It seems kind of lined up just to do that. You know, it's a match made in heaven. Yeah, everybody. As I'm sure it doesn't have to be said, but maybe it does. Yeah, no. As always, you should wait for reviews. Wait for, at the very least, gameplay and gameplay previews, like to pre-order before you've even seen it. Yeah, they're allowing pre-orders now, but to pre-order before you've even like seen the actual game is outrageous. Like that's just ridiculous. They also say play 3 days early with Ubisoft Plus, so they are pushing for those memberships, those signups. So that's a thing. I can feel Luke's disappointment through the screen. No, like here's where I'm at. Okay, my overall impressions from all of this. So looking at the cinematic trailer, does it strike the same emotional tone and potency as like the Valhalla trailer that we got 4 years ago? For me personally, not really, but I've been clear for a long time that the Japanese setting just doesn't really get me super pumped. I know some people get super excited when they see the setting and the samurai and shinobi and stuff. For me, it just doesn't do it. If this was ancient Egypt, like I'd be jumping up and down, super giddy, peeing my pants. But for me, it's just, this isn't one of my areas of obsession, of fixation. Nothing's wrong with it. I just personally am more interested in other settings. So from the outset, like, I think that's important to clarify. This doesn't get any like brownie points for me with that setting. What gets me excited is like the ships, the sailing, because I freaking love sailing and ships just in general, and in video games. I always like that. And recently, fans of ships in games have not gotten a great treatment, you know? But Luke, you got Skull and Bones this year. You've been eating well. No, I haven't. So that type of thing gets me excited. Seeing the large expanses, that gets me excited. Big scale battles and stuff. This makes me wonder if this is going to be like the what did they call it? It was like the different faction system in Odyssey where you could have little like full battles between different groups. So maybe something like that's going to happen here. That could be interesting. I like the idea of there being two protagonists, one focused on stealth, one focused on melee, as opposed to just having one that's amazing at everything. It's one of my problems with like Valhalla is that you have one character who's able to just be a superhuman at everything they do. And it's always like a little, like, I know we're playing a video game, okay? And this is one thing I think that's important to stress. We're talking about a freaking video game. So for anybody to be like, well, actually that sword probably couldn't puncture that armor. And if you did that, it might dent the sword's metal, and you wouldn't be allowed to do that. And you could potentially, ruin your sword by doing it. Shut up. It's a video game. Okay. Like if we're going for historical accuracy, sure, fair enough. But at the end of the day, we're talking about a Ubisoft video game. Okay. You shouldn't be expecting it to be like, Well, actually, this piece of armor would have been affixed with a leather tie under the shoulder, and you can see that that's not there. So they clearly have just not considered any of this. Okay, shut up. Like, we're talking about a video game, okay? It's not that crucial. Beyond that, like other things, I like the idea of having two characters focused on the two different styles of gameplay. I'm initially, you know, wondering how they're going to do this, because the scene that they say, like they show here at the outset, seems to show that Yusuke is part of the raiding party that's like destroying her village and killing friends and family of hers. And then they just become friends and buddies and start helping each other. So I wonder how they do that. Is this like, my concern is that this is basically narratively just going to be like the newer Star Wars movies, you know, with what's her name? Rey, and I can't remember his name, where he's the stormtrooper, and it's like everybody's just like, oh well, now we're friends and we fight. Like, you know, I hate that contrived sort of thing. Finn, Kylo Finn. Finn, yeah. Like when you're just like, oh, see, they're from different backgrounds, but they come together to fight a common enemy. It's like, okay, it's a story we've heard before. It's not necessarily like a bad thing. It's just something we've seen before. And whenever I've seen a plot before, naturally, I'm not going to be that crazy into it. As for this, I mean, this stuff looks interesting. It seems like they are specifically showing stealth encounters, which makes sense with the setting, and, you know, unique tools we haven't seen in this form ever, but at least we haven't seen in a while. The grapple hook gets me excited because I think that could lead to some interesting things in terms of parkour and stuff like that. The big mace, different combat weapons available, and all of that. Lots of day and night scenes. Seems like there's a lot here. And then, of course, the pivoting hidden blade, which is very, very different. And hearing that only she will have the hidden blade, that actually gets me more excited than probably anything else, because it says that she is the stealth character. You're not going to be able to use him for stealth. That's not what he specializes in. He doesn't do that. She does that. And I think that is way more interesting than when you have a character or a couple of characters that can just do everything really, really well. You know, I prefer this. So my stance on this is that I find it interesting. It doesn't like get me super giddy, but honestly, I don't think the setting for me personally was going to get me there. I've seen some of you in chat that are like super, super giddy, but for me, the setting just is like, okay, interesting. But it doesn't mean that the game's going to be bad. It just doesn't get me like irrationally hyped or anything. And with what we've seen, I mean, I guess we can actually click on the links. Should we do this? Hold on. Where's the links? Let's see what the pricing looks like. So they're pushing Ubisoft Plus Premium to play the game early. Oh wait, are these gameplay screenshots? Oh wait. Maybe. That looks like gameplay. That looks like gameplay. So we got a handful of screenshots, actually. So I don't know. I mean, these are those cinematic screenshots, so you can't really tell that much from it. But yeah, I mean, it looks like she's got throwing knives. This is a typical encampment you probably have to clear. Beyond that, $70, so full price. It is not available on last gen hardware, which is good. Thank God. Beyond that, they have a $70 version, $110, $130. Differences are 3-day early access and the season pass, or 3-day season or 3-day early access season pass, and then ultimate pack. And in the ultimate pack, they're doing character pack with gear, weapon sets. I just don't get, like, who is spending an extra $20 to get like a unique gear set? And like, but they do it because people buy it. Let's be honest. And then they're really trying to pitch you Ubisoft Plus. They really want you to sign up for that, which honestly, I don't know how they make, like, how does that make a ton of money? Unless people are just forgetting to cancel the membership. But I guess that's kind of like the operative thing. That's the operative thing. I mean, this is one thing to remember, guys, is that a lot of times people will be like, who is buying these things? The reason they release these is because thousands, if not millions of people end up spending for the gold or ultimate editions. Like, they sell thousands and thousands and thousands of these, especially when you talk about 3-day early access. A lot of people are going to do this. And I think this is going to be the new trend in the industry. And I've been predicting this for years, is that this early access thing is going to be the new mainstay. because a lot of companies are like, our games are, they're $200-300 million to make, if not more. We need to break even somehow. How are we going to do that? Well, we need to raise the average price. We need to get more from each person so we can fill it with microtransactions. Okay, we'll do that. We can sell a season pass. Okay, we'll do that. But we need to do even more because God knows we're not going to trim the budgets. So what do? Let's use FOMO. Let's give it 3-day early access. And a lot of people will not want to miss out. And so they'll spend the extra $40 to get it early. And yeah, you're getting a season pass, which is going to come with like the DLC and stuff. And so there's that. But bonus quest day one with additional unlockable content as well as 2 upcoming expansions. Yeah, the bonus quests that they've done in years past are like literally 15-minute missions that are just like, it's really lame. Usually it's like, oh, you walk here, pick up a thing. Yay, the quest is over. It's usually very sucky. I don't like it. I don't like exclusive quests in games, but with Ubisoft, they tend to be very much an afterthought. But a lot of people will spend that extra $40 to get early access. A lot of people will. Like a shocking number of people will. And for them, like they just went from making $70 a copy to $110 a copy just by basically pushing you with the fear of missing out on the initial hype. And a lot of people will buy into it. It's why I think like for GTA 6, you're going to see it where they might release a $70 version, but I think they'll do like a 3 to 5 day early, maybe even a week early access. And 80% of people, irrationally probably, are going to be buying the early access because they don't want to miss out. It's silly, and it's one of those things everybody knows is silly. Like, you know, when you're buying it, you're like, this is stupid. I should just wait a week. It's $40 for, like, I'm going to enjoy the game either way. Like, why would I do this? But you still do it. You know, people still do it. They know it's silly, and they still do it, which is just kind of funny. But that's what happens. Let's see. Upcoming expansions will be included. 2 extra missions, or an extra mission available at launch. 5 skill points. Red Dragon photo filter. Hideout pack. I don't really care about this. I don't really care about photo filter. The skill points, I'm guessing it's going to be leveled in line with how like Odyssey was leveled. So that's maybe like, it makes the first few hours easier. I don't know why anybody would want this because it unbalances the game, but whatever. And then the Sekiro character pack, and you can see there's almost like a dragon looking thing behind him. I think this is your horse mount, and this is just a skin for the mount. I think that's what it is. And then it's just different skins for the characters, which again is pretty standard. Apparently Ubisoft has made outrageous amounts of money on the skins for Valhalla and stuff, so it makes sense that they're doing that again here. I mean, I think for me, there's just nothing in the reveal is particularly shocking or surprising, which I kind of was also expecting. Like, it's a cinematic trailer. This game has been rumored and leaked for a long time, and so we've kind of got a good idea of what to expect and what we're going to see from it. And so there's nothing like that stunning or surprising about it. I think gameplay will be the most telling thing. But we're going to have to wait till June to see that. Let's see. The racists are getting exposed. If you are referring to like the people freaking out because there's a black character, I think there are some people who maybe are just unaware of the story of Yusuke. And maybe for them, it is just like, it's a game set in feudal Japan. Why is there a black character there from Africa? You know, like I can understand why initially the knee-jerk reaction might be that this is just, you know, a stretch or revisionist history to try and make a more diverse game. It is tied in historical grounding, as Fake History Hunter outlined. It's not super clear what his actual story was, what his role was at the time. There's not a whole lot described. So like this one, the archives describes a black Boju or something from the Christian country has arrived. He appears to be 26 or 7 years old. The blackness of his body is like that of a bull, and he is healthy and of fine physique. Moreover, he has the strength of more than 10 men. The Padres come with him and thanked Lord Nobanaga for his permission to proselytize. A black man was taken as a vassal and received a stipend. His name was decided to be Yusuke. He was also given a short sword and a house. He was sometimes made to carry the tools. The black man understood little Japanese, and he never tired of talking with him. And because he was strong and could do few tricks, he took great pleasure in protecting him and had him roam around the city of Kyoto with an attendant. Some people in the town thought that he might make him a lord. It's like there is historical grounding for all of this, and he was an actual person and an actual character that lived. I can understand why the knee-jerk reaction might be to think that this is just an example of like trying to create something just for the sake of diversity, but that's not actually the case here. It was an actual character, and an actual human being. And so I think that can, you know, if we give them the benefit of the doubt that maybe it's just an honest misunderstanding, then there's that. There are certainly some people that will just freak out about this because there's a black protagonist, and those people can dry up, certainly. But I mean, I think if you are just unaware that this was an actual character and an actual person that lived, then, you know, maybe your intentions are to make it more historically accurate or to demand more historical accuracy, even though you might not be aware of this. It's trendy to maul about DEI and ESG these days. Yeah, well, especially like a lot of people don't even know what it stands for. I understand the impulse, and I get it. Like, you don't want a game to suffer just because activists pushed for a certain racial composition of the cast. I understand that is something we don't want, because it can lead to games that are not focused on quality or narratives, that aren't focused on quality or interesting characters, but are rather just obsessed with checking off boxes. And I absolutely agree that making a narrative based around checking boxes is not the way to make a good narrative, or to be respectful of actual characters and human beings that represent or come from diverse backgrounds. It's not how you do it. And I think we've seen when it goes bad in the form of like, you know, a Saints Row or something like that, where they're trying to do it and they just fail miserably. But in this case, like, these are actual characters tied to actual historical events, places, and people. And so even though initially you might have the knee-jerk reaction, it is actually grounded in some historical fact. You know, bro, the girl has no drip. Now that's more of a fair critique. I think that where's the drip? Where's the drip? Yeah, I gotta say, Yasuke is dripping like crazy, but Yasuke, or now I'm gonna mispronounce it so many times. Naue, not Naue, I think is what it was. Yeah, where's the drip? Where's the drip? That's fair. That's what the skins are for. Yeah, exactly. You solved it. You solved it. McLovin D's Nuts, thank you for another super chat. Kind of missed the database entry aspect of AC. It was interesting discovering historical locations and people. The discovery tours were just too tedious. Yeah, they were a little tedious, but they were fun. I'm glad they did them. I hope they continue them, because I remember hearing that they were using them in actual schools. Like, it's an actual teaching tool, which is awesome. Mark, thank you for that super chat. Wish they would stop changing the story all the time. The fact that Unity and Syndicate story finished off screen is outrageous. I'm not even sure how the story goes from Valhalla to Red without another reboot. Yeah, I mean, so I agree. It's certainly messy. I won't pretend to really know how they've tied it all together, but they probably have spent some time trying to figure that out. But yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a mess. Gabriel, thank you for the super chat. Greek mythology was my favorite thing as a kid and my Greek heritage, so I adored Odyssey as well as gameplay perspective, but absolutely understand why people might not like it. Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing I've noticed, and I've done surveys and polls of this, the people that tend to be the most outspoken against Assassin's Creed games specifically are not the people that like have ever played it or are the target audience. And I think it just reaffirms the idea that it's hard to gauge what the actual fan base's response is to a reveal like this, because a lot of them will stay more quiet, because being an outspoken fan of AC can get you bullied, unfortunately, nowadays. It's like being a big fan of the Cybertruck. There's a lot of people that are big fans of it because there's tons of pre-orders and people that want to buy one, but not a lot of people will tell you that because they'll get bullied, you know. Let's see, Guyver, thank you for the super chat. I bet there wouldn't be nearly as much outrage if it was William Adams instead of Yusuke. Who's William Adams? Let me Google it. Googling. William Adams was better known in Japan as Miura Anjin and was an English navigator who in 1600 became the first Englishman to reach Japan. Oh, interesting. So like he was also an Englishman. So you're saying if they had made an Englishman one of the protagonists, people wouldn't be losing their minds as much as having a black protagonist. I think that probably is fair, that people wouldn't be freaking out about it. but it's because Yusuke, like people that might not know that Yusuke was an actual person, they look at it and they think that it's just Sweet Baby Inc. or DEI stuff, whatever. And so that's the knee-jerk reaction. So I think that that's probably a fair evaluation. Leo, thank you for the super chat. Cinematic trailers for AC always look epic, then the game is just copy and paste Grandfest with a different setting. Yeah, well, that's why I said at the outset, like cinematic trailers for Ubisoft always look really, really cool. They can give you little nods of what's going to be in the game, but it doesn't give you a whole lot to work with, Gameplay is where you can really tell. McLovendy's nuts, intriguing yet skeptical. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. Yeah, with all this, like the bare bones just reaction to this should be, even if you look at it and you're like, ooh, that's really epic and crazy, you should always just wait for gameplay, wait for previews, wait for reviews, all of that stuff. Like games nowadays can be presented in one way and end up being a different way. Like you just don't give them your money until they've earned it, like it's so funny. Like it's so funny that people freak out about it. It's like, it's really not that complicated. Just don't give them your money until they've earned it. But some people are just like, no, just take it now. I'm like, no, make them earn it. They have to earn it. Honestly, I may rent it once I see the gameplay, but I'm hoping for still less RPG. Skills can be fine, but the gear was my main issue with Odyssey. Yeah, it's unclear how it will be balanced. The fact that they're giving out skill points makes me think it'll be much closer to Odyssey than Valhalla. So I'm not expecting it to be as gear based as Valhalla, but we'll see. Well, and Valhalla also had like the power level was tied into the skill points, and they had like 300 skill points over the game. Like it was ridiculous. Michael, thank you for the super chat. Will there be Assassins versus Templars? Yeah, but they're going to be like the Shadow versus the Order and that type of thing. So that'll be my expectation. Mike Dememe, thank you for the 2. By the way, Luke's, thank you for the AI nightmare I have now. Lol. Oh yeah, the AI voice chat thing we did yesterday. Yeah, that was cool, wasn't it? A lot of people were like, oh, this seems really scripted and fake, Luke. Nice try. I'm like, bro, we did it live. Should we ask the AI a question about Yusuke? Okay, ChatGPT 4.0, okay? 4.0, you see it in the very top. Can you tell me a bit about the historical figure Yasuke in Japan in the 16th century?
Yasuke was a fascinating historical figure in Japan during the 16th century. He was an African man, originally from Mozambique, who arrived in Japan in 1579 with the Jesuit missionary Alessandro Valignano. Yasuke's presence in Japan created quite a stir, as many Japanese had never seen an African before. He eventually entered the service of the powerful warlord Oda Nobunaga. Impressed by Yasuke's strength and imposing stature, Nobunaga made him a samurai, a highly unusual honor for a foreigner at that time. Yasuke served Nobunaga until the latter's death in 1582. Although detailed records of Yasuke's life are scarce, his story is unique and highlights the diverse and sometimes unexpected interactions between different cultures during the period of European exploration and colonization.
Wrong. No, it's broad strokes, right? It's not known if he was ever made a samurai. It's not confirmed or anything. The writings say that he was considering doing it, but we don't know if he ever was made a samurai. So wrong. Fake news. Anyway, how much? Yeah, the other features, some of the other features they showed in the preview thing have not been fully released yet. That is true. I mean, I think with a lot of the video game stuff, like we always get in a weird spot where it's like you can get really upset over something, but it's like, guys, it is a video game. Like you don't have a problem with all these other video games where you have like superpowers and like we're getting upset over this. Like this is where we're drawing the line. It seems very selective. The outrage seems very selective. Because if people are going to be like, well, it's not historically accurate. It's like, well, it's broad strokes. Most likely, like it's broad strokes accurate, as accurate as like we know. We don't know much about him, but that's what they're using to their advantage to fill in the gaps with Assassin's Creed lore and stuff. Yeah, and you literally fight Medusa in their last game. That's a good that's a good point, Ben. It's like you literally fought a Minotaur and you didn't call for the game to be canceled then, Like that was like, okay, well that's a little far, but this making one of the protagonists a historical character that I didn't know about, that's a step too far. It's like, okay, bro. Okay. Let's see. And it's just so dumb. Like, this is the thing I've said, like, there's many reasons to be upset over like Ubisoft's practices, over how these games are priced, over all of this stuff. Like, there are very valid frustrations to have, but to throw fits over this stuff, it diminishes the quality of your points. Like it just does. It's like when people were freaking out over like Suicide Squad, and people are like, yeah, Suicide Squad, you shouldn't buy it because of Sweet Baby Inc.'s involvement or something. And it's like, no, you shouldn't buy it because it's a bad game. Like it's just a bad game, and it's $70 with 2 hours of content that's repeated for 10 hours, and like they make you piss on Justice League members. Like there's very valid reasons to critique the game, but this is like this should be pretty low on the list of frustrations to have, you know. Let's see. V Dyer Wolf, thank you for the 10. Saying those types of buzzwords for a fictional character will never make sense. To me, there's historical precedence, but like if we want to go that route, then there weren't assassins either. Yeah, it's like at some point you gotta just pick. Are you really upset about historical accuracy and you don't want to play the game because it's historically inaccurate? Okay, then you're not playing most games. Like, I can point out to you that like many things in all sorts of various video games are not historically accurate, but you might not have a problem with that. Why is this one particularly offensive to you? Biggest Q, is there an actual Assassins versus Templar and their effect on history, or is it just Samurai and Shinobi story of them as I mean, it's Assassin's Creed game. There's going to be Assassins versus Templars, or it's going to be the Order versus the Brotherhood. They'll frame it in various ways, but yeah, I mean, that's in every Assassin's Creed game, one way or another. Like even in Odyssey, which took place before like the foundation of the Brotherhood, even in that, it's like, yeah, well, it's the Order and the cultists and everything. So it was still there, you know. It's going to be there. Crumb Drum, thank you for the 10. Yeah, I don't care if they're a Black Samurai in the game. Make him an actual good character and I'll be more inclined to care, which is with Ubisoft nowadays, I highly doubt. Well, that's the thing. That is a very valid point to make. It's like, I don't care if they're using Yasuke as the inspiration for the character, but if the character sucks and if he's really one note and uninteresting, he's going to be uninteresting and one note. Like, that's just what it is. But if the character is interesting, then like we all win. Like it doesn't have to be much more complicated than that. Yarma, thank you for the 10. As a disgusting, shameless AC fanboy, seeing a trailer for the most requested AC setting of all time, I'm cautious. It looks good. Some folks are scared about it pushing the message. Thoughts? If by the message you mean like pushing like very PC tones or whatever, however else you would want to phrase it, then I think that's, you know, fair. Like my problem with activist participation in games is that activists don't tend to be good writers. They don't tend to be very good at much of anything, which is why they're activists and not game developers. Like if they were good at developing games or writing stories for games, they would just be game writers and game developers. The fact that they work as activists tells you that they probably were not very good in those fields to begin with. So they found another grift to work in. So my problem is when activists get involved with games and then actively make the story worse for sake of some other goal. Sometimes they make the game actively worse, but sometimes there will be a company that like consults on something, and so they say that they worked with X company, but it's like none of their advice was really heeded or taken. You know, like I can hire somebody that comes in and tells me, oh, Luke, to improve your YouTube channels, you should start doing Mr. Beast style content and give away tons of money and make the big faces in all your thumbnails. You should do that and play only Minecraft. And they could say that they worked with me, but I probably wouldn't take any of their advice. But we still technically had a meeting and they could put me on their resume as like, yeah, we worked with Luke, but nothing actually came of it. So I don't want to fall into the trap of like McCarthyism, where just because one company has previously spoken to or even worked with another company I don't like, I don't want to immediately disregard and dismiss everything they do. But I will say, like, if they have heeded the advice of some of these activist groups, typically the games end up significantly worse. But at the end of the day, the way you tell this is by just playing the damn game and finding out what the game is actually like. And I think also the danger right now is like, I said this back when all this stuff started with SBI, like SBI is one of like dozens of companies that do this stuff. Okay. Like if you think that SBI is the only group that does that, you're wrong. And SBI, if they shut down, they'll just make a new company that you've never heard of and that maybe never will hear about. And they'll continue doing this stuff. Like just because this one group is associated with it does not mean necessarily like, even if they're not associated with it, there still could be activist involvement elsewhere. Like it just, you can't just look at one single boogeyman and think that you understand the broader context of the game. The ultimate way you figure it out is by actually trying the game and investigating it yourself. You know, here's the thing where I'm at with all of this stuff is like, my job is to look at video games and evaluate video games as pieces of entertainment content and to evaluate them as video games. I can point to the monetization systems. I can look at the quality of the story, the writing, the characters, all of that stuff. Broader discourse over themes of diversity, equity, inclusion, that stuff. I think everybody certainly has their own opinions of it. But as a gaming YouTuber, nobody should be coming to me for opinions of politics or anything. Like, if you listen to a gaming YouTuber to get information on political topics, then you're dumber than a dummy. Like nobody should be coming to any gaming YouTuber for any information on any of that stuff. Okay. So I can frame things and present them to you as best as I can factually and try to put it out there. But like, I'm here to evaluate a game and the quality of the game as it is. And if the game is good, the game is good. If you don't like the game, even though it's good because it has this other stuff going on, okay, so be it. That's fine. But my job is to look at video games, you know, not to freak out over other broader contexts, you know. Okay, this is the IGN article. An IGN exclusive on the new Splinter Cell like stealth systems, dynamic weather, and gameplay altering seasons. What? Okay. Feudal era Japan is the most requested setting in AC's 16-year history. That's why Marc-Alexis Cote, vice president, executive producer of the franchise, tells me in a presentation about Codename Red, now revealed to be officially titled AC Shadows. It's the game that will finally grant fans their long-held wish. It will provide a deeply detailed digital recreation of Japan in 1579, complete with its legion of samurai, shinobi, and Portuguese merchants and Jesuit missionaries. If you loved this year's Shogun TV series, then AC Shadows is poised to let you bask in that world. To learn more, IGN embarked on an exclusive tour of Ubisoft's Quebec studio, where the development team revealed the vision and ambition for their latest game, built specifically for the new generation of consoles. Now, we get to take you inside Assassin's Creed Shadows and tell you all about its setting, its two playable protagonists, and the dynamic world they live in, where every season promises to change. That's a good point. They do have a lot of different areas. I just figured it was like in the mountains, it's going to be snowy, and the lower levels, it'll be green, but maybe it's actual seasons that are changing. Taylor, thank you for that. People need to chill about the agenda being shoved down their throat. Guys, they're a business. Their agenda is to make as much money as possible. Yeah, ultimately, the reason why people freak out about the DEI stuff is because specifically the idea is that companies like BlackRock will specifically invest in companies that they view as progressive in various ways. So companies will try to appear more progressive just to appeal to those investments that boost share price and stock price and stuff. And that, without a doubt, is happening. Like there are activist investors who specifically invest in companies that they think serve a better like social purpose, whatever that may mean. So that certainly does happen. And it's like, it's the same thing with like Apple, where you see Apple pushing like, we're going to be carbon neutral. And it's like, meanwhile, you're releasing all of these products and none of them are fully recyclable. And you make the previous year's accessories not compatible with this year's model just because you want to sell more, even though that leads to more e-waste. Like it's all just a front. Like it's all just a show to pretend like they're being very, very eco or green, but it's actually just to appeal to activist investors and stuff. So that certainly is a thing that happens. If you don't like it, don't buy it. Problem solved. Exactly, Whitest Rabbit. That's the thing with all of this. It's like, just vote with your wallet. The fans of AC are going to get hyped over this and are going to love it. I'm sure. The people who view this as like another cog in the whatever war of culture and gaming, like they're going to freak out about it. And then like the casual gamer will just see this on the store shelf and be like, oh, cool, new Assassin's Creed game. Sure, I'll buy that. People are just going to do what they're going to do. But ultimately, just vote with your wallet. Just vote with your wallet. Okay, let's continue reading this. As always for Assassin's Creed game, we try to pick a setting that is a pivotal moment in history that can also allow plenty of gameplay opportunity, explains Stephanie Ann Ruata, I can't read today. World director and historian at Ubisoft Quebec. For Shadows, that pivotal moment is 16th century Japan, specifically the Azuchi Momoyama period. Can't you guys wait for me to cover this game and I'll constantly mispronounce things? An era of transition between the Civil War-stricken Sengoku period and the peaceful Edo period. Quote, it would be the last time that samurai would fight a major battle and the last time they would have a strictly military role. Ooh. With the samurai in active fighting force during the era, it's unsurprising to discover that you'll be playing as one. What is surprising, though, is that this samurai's heritage in a first for Assassin's Creed Shadows will allow you to play as a real historical figure. If you know your Japanese history, you may be familiar with Yasuke, the legendary African samurai. Likely born in Mozambique, he was brought to Japan in 1579 by a Jesuit missionary and went on to serve the mighty daimyo. Yasuke is somebody who is going to tie together many of the most powerful figures in our era, says Associate Narrative Director Brooke Davies. He really is a great point of entry to this as well, with Oda Nobunaga on one side, and on the other side, the Portuguese that he arrives with. He really does a lovely job of connecting the dots historically, what we know factually. And then narratively, we had so much fun imagining the kind of person who would have this trajectory. Through Yasuke's foreigner eyes, Shadows will explore the tales of honor, justice, and belonging, but his isn't the only story you'll experience. Replicating the format of 2015's Assassin's Creed Syndicate, Shadows will feature two unique protagonists played in tandem. Starring beside Yasuke is Naoe, a swift and agile shinobi whose talents more closely align with Assassin's Creed traditional hero archetype. The fictional daughter of real historical figure Fujibayashi Nagato, Naoe is a very different character to Yasuke. Where he is a bold fighter, she's the hidden blade in the shadows. It's through her that Ubisoft are seemingly rediscovering the series' stealth roots in a manner that surpasses even last year's Assassin's Creed Mirage. The thing that shines the most, I feel, in Assassin's Creed, it's really the hidden blade, the assassination, being able to stay hidden, says the game's director Charles Benoit. So that's the core that we want to keep. What we needed to push forward was to make it feel a bit more modern in the approach. That needed modernity has been found in the fully dynamic lighting system, in which the radiance from sunlight, torches, and lanterns can illuminate both the land and you. Escape into the shadows, though, and you're invisible, and if you can't escape the light, you can snuff it out. Lamps or their carriers can be eliminated to create pools of darkness. If, like me, you were raised on Splinter Cell, this is all very enticing. So it sounds like it's going to be even more elaborate stealth than even Mirage had, which is awesome. Parkour has always been something that's pretty iconic and pretty core to the stealth experience because they go hand in hand, says Jonathan Dumont, Assassin's Creed Shadows creative director. To enhance the parkour, the team has given Naoe a grappling hook. I told you, it's all physics-based, so there's a little bit of improbability sometimes when using it. There's a danger to using it, but you could also just perform assassinations with it. Let's see. These shinobi skills make Naoe the ideal choice for players who want to get back to an Assassin's Creed that's actually about assassins, but the sneaking systems also pull on other aspects of stealth genre that Assassin's Creed has typically ignored. For instance, enemies can now be knocked out, unlocking the option for a more pacifist playthrough. Ew. Who knew? Of course, the RPG era of Assassin's Creed has demanded a robust combat experience too, and that's where Ubisoft plans to let Yasuke shine. We want the combat to feel spectacular, so we pushed quite a bit on having a lot of the objects destructible or sliceable. The upgraded Anvil engine upon which Assassin's Creed Shadows is built can now realistically replicate damage caused by every type of weapon, from accurate sword slices to perfect arrow puncture marks. Think Fruit Ninja, but with, well, almost every prop that's in Shadows' world. Well, that's kind of cool. Of course, the real samurai fantasy comes alive in Kurosawa-like duels. While Ubisoft Quebec isn't using the legendary director's filmography as a direct influence, they still want that level of tension. Quote, when we have a mini-boss type of fighter, we really want it to feel like a duel, says Benoit. So this exchange of blocking, parrying, dodging, it's like a dance. For the most part, stealth or combat will be your choice. Every character, or each character, has a number of personal quests in which they are compulsory to play as, but beyond that, you can freely choose who you want to control. This goes as far as being able to switch between characters between objectives. Quote, that's the beauty, says producer Carl Onye, because during a quest, there are several steps and you're going to go from one place to another. You want to have this autonomy and agency to choose how you want to play the setup. Interesting. So they're going to just straight up let you switch between them freely, even objective to objective. So there could be a thing where it's like, okay, get to the top of the tower and destroy the bells so they can't alert anybody. So you use Nawe to do that. And then you're like, okay, and then we have to take out the chieftain. So you could stealth assassinate him, or you could have Yasuke go in there and do it himself with melee combat. You can kind of pick. Okay. No, this is like the Giga upgraded Anvil engine. So it's the tool set that they built after Valhalla. So Valhalla, that's a tool set from like 2019, 2020. This is the version of that that's been upgraded for like 2 years straight and is pretty significantly overhauled. And I mean, of course, we don't have pictures or videos or anything, but let's just say there's reports and people that may have seen what this thing is able to do have been very, very impressed. There's that. It will look and feel like a next gen or a current gen, I guess, game, without a doubt. This is not going to be one of those games where like you boot it up and you're like, is this the PS4 port or is this the PS5 port? This is not going to be one of those. No skill bush, please. Dude, for real. Preach, Mr. Steelio Kill. Like, for real. Like, please, dear God. I swear to all that is holy, if they have an auto apply skill point button in this game like they did in Valhalla, I will scream. It's like, yeah, our skill trees are so uninteresting that players don't even like putting the skill points into the skill tree in certain spots. So we're just going to put a button there that automatically does it for you. Just let you skip over that whole thing. Like, it's so stupid. So stupid. The whole thing was so dumb. It was so dumb. Oh, how anyone thought that was a good idea is amazing. Anyway, much of Shadow's new design is focused on creating a living, reactive world. You can see that in the dynamic lighting and destruction, but there's a much greater system at play, seasons. The open world progresses through spring, summer, autumn, and winter, with each new period bringing its own weather conditions and terrain shifts. Interesting. While this helps lend a sense of realism to the land, dynamic winds will procedurally blow swirls of pollen in the spring and pull leaves from the branches in the fall. Each season can have a dramatic impact on gameplay. Quote, we've really been pushing about making sure that the gameplay and art are not separate, but they're intertwining, explains Onye, or Oni. I'm not sure. He offers an example of how in summer you can use the new prone stance. Yes, you can go prone in this game. Poggers, to crawl into a pond and hide beneath the surface of the water. But in the water, or in the winter, that pond will be frozen over. You create new and you remove at the same time different ways and routes of infiltration. That actually is unironically really, really cool. The fact that you can crawl into the water and hide under the surface of the water in the summer, but in the winter it's frozen. So you can't do that anymore. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. As spring blooms, grass blows tall enough to hide in, or grows tall enough to hide in. Oh yeah, so certain routes that would not have been available in the winter when the grass was dead, in the spring when it grows tall, you can now hide in it and stealth your way through. That's kind of cool. Bushes become leafy, perfect to crouch behind, but as the months go by, the approaching winter kills off these natural hiding spots. Hanging icicles threaten to snap and fall, revealing your rooftop position. Oh, that's freaking cool. So if it's winter and you're walking on a roof, the icicles on the edge could snap off and alert the other guards beneath to your location. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. But at the same time, the worsening weather limits the view of enemies. Howling winds obscure your footsteps, so when it's really windy, you can make more noise without alerting enemies. That's cool. Guard patrols stick to areas of warmth when it's cold, allowing you to take new colder paths. So in winter specifically, they'll stay close to fires, whereas in summer, they'll be more willing to explore the outskirts of their paths. That's cool. Players will have to adapt constantly to what the environment is giving them. See, this sounds really novel. This sounds really cool. Very different. I love that. Seasons will change based on your progress through the campaign, which art director Thierry Danseru tells me is to ensure the world stays, quote, authentic as possible to match historical events. It if it was spring when a certain moment occurred in history, the world will be in the right place. But when in an open world side quest, it might happen that you play a quest in the autumn and I will play the same quest I'm going to be in summer, he says. So that's up to the system and the way you play your game. That's super cool. These seasonal conditions affect the entire map, which covers the central area of Japan, the provinces where Oda Nobunaga organized his stronghold, and the unification of the country. In terms of area, the region is similar in size to Assassin's Creed Origins' Egyptian map, although based on a more realistic scale ratio. Because the castles took up a lot of space, we really wanted the mountains to feel like mountains. We've made the environments feel wider in the game. Those castles, all prominent historical landmarks, are set to be Shadow Centerpiece dungeons. Quote, the way they were built, it's a level designed by itself, enthuses Benoit. It's so big, it's like an adventure each time you go in the castle. I love that. One of the biggest holes in Assassin's Creed, in my opinion, after Odyssey. Really, Odyssey felt it, and then Valhalla, it was really bad. The lack of big cities and locations really hurt it. Really, really bad. And so to see now that there's going to be big cities and areas to explore, I think that's awesome. The Hunt. While Ubisoft is thus far very open about Assassin's Creed Shadows' setting, protagonist, and world, it's not yet ready to talk too much about what you actually do. What little they will say points to a more open, non-linear approach that's focused on killing targets. It's a format that instantly calls to mind the structure of last year's Assassin's Creed Mirage, or the Cult of Cosmos web of targets that needed to be hunted down in 2018's Odyssey, also developed by this team. You'll be free to track your prey in any order, and quests will guide you with hints rather than directly point out your objectives. I also like that. Instead of holding your hand, they're actually going to keep it much more dynamic. Quote, one thing we really wanted is to make sure the world feels alive, and those targets are always in the world, says Benoit. So it's possible that you'll encounter some of them without really knowing about them before. It's less of a follow a quest up to a point, but it's much more, I want to do this, and then you'll find the way how to do it, Dumas says. He notes that the campaign is still very much objective-based, but that players will have a little more agency in how they go about things now. This is partly exemplified by a change made to Assassin's Creed's iconic synchronization points. Visiting them in previous games used to plot up to a dozen new objective markers on your map, telling you exactly where to find new activities. In Shadows, they're now simply vantage points to be climbed, from which you can look around and spot highlighted locations worth seeking out. So they'll be there, but it's not like, okay, there's all the dots, go find the bits of candy. As for the targets themselves, I'm hoping that Shadows' renewed stealth values will mean it offers a worthy successor to the Hitman-esque black box missions from AC Unity, in which kill quests featured multiple methods of dispatching your prey. Ubisoft won't indulge my curiosity, but Dumont thinks, quote, people will like some of the variety that we try to put in our targets, and notes that there will be options to be able to take them down, or having some negatives and sometimes some surprises. Okay. During the studio tour, I'm afforded very few glimpses of actual gameplay. I watched a designer take Yusuke for a test drive to showcase his combat abilities. It's a far cry from the perfect shinobi swordplay of Sekiro, but does look like an appropriately retooled version of AC's RPG fight system. Parries turn into strikes that break enemy armor plates, and a chain of attacks concludes in a flashy decapitation finisher move. The developer then switches to Naoe, who fends off a group of attackers using a kusarigama, swinging its chain in wide arcs to enforce space between her and her foes. At another desk, Naoe takes down unsuspecting foes by hiding in the rafters, Sam Fisher style, and impales enemies through Soji paper doors. It's all barely a taste, but it's promising. A substantial gameplay reveal, I suspect, will arrive with this year's Ubisoft Forward presentation on June 10th. Hopefully that's where we will see the many fascinating dynamic systems combined with the series' traditions and tropes, and provide the first proof that AC Shadows is the shinobi sim that so many fans have been waiting for. A long wait that's almost over. Shadows launches on November 15th. I mean, the weather systems, those seem outrageously cool. Like, to have actual dynamism within that is super awesome. The thing that was particularly cool to me was not just the pond freezing over and the grass growing. So there will be times where, like, if you take on a mission in the summer, you will have a different route to take than somebody who played it in winter, which is super cool. Or with this, like, howling winds obscure your footsteps. So if you're stealthing and it's happening during a snowstorm, a dynamic snowstorm, you're going to have an easier time doing that. Or in the winter, guards will stick to areas of warmth, which will make it easier to stealth through that way. But you have to be careful because you could step on the edge of a rooftop, which could cause hanging icicles to snap and fall, revealing where you are. So like there's a lot of really, really cool stuff that I haven't seen before in games like this. And I think that sounds interesting because it's not just the straight copy and paste of like Valhalla. They've actually tweaked a ton of stuff, which I think is super cool. Yeah, listening to Luke try to pronounce these names is content enough. Yeah, dude, buckle up. We've got months of this ahead, so just you wait. Just you wait. Yeah, very intriguing. You have earned your paycheck, Luke. Dude, I wish they were paying me to just randomly talk about the game. I wish. I wish they were paying me to tell people not to pre-order it, right? If so, their money has not been well spent. Luke, we're going to pay you to like hype up the game, but you need to tell people not to pre-order it, and you need to tell people to wait until gameplay and to not get their hopes up. No, I think that if they also, like, honestly, in June when they show these systems in play, I think it'll settle a lot of these concerns. Because the most common complaint with Assassin's Creed is that it's just copy and pasted stuff, right? People are like, it's the same thing we've seen before, and it's more of the same, right? That's what everybody says. However, I think, oh, David's going hard. Look at David. David's streaming Joe Raptor and then me on the other side. Doubling up. That's a real fan right there. That's funny. So because that's the most common complaint, because people most often are like, Ubisoft just copy and paste stuff, to see gameplay systems that are actually novel is super, super cool. And I think that could actually do a lot for the game. As always, you should not ever pre-order a game, but you certainly you should never, ever, ever pre-order a game before you've even seen it. Like, you've seen a cinematic trailer. To pre-order any game when all you've seen is a cinematic trailer is just dumb. Okay, so even if you look super stoked, or even if you are super stoked and it looks super epic, and you're super excited, just wait until June. Nothing will change between now and then, except you will get more information. It's really not that crazy. Just patience. Final impressions on AC Shadows. We're gonna, of course, talk to Joe Raptor about it, but we're gonna get into all of that. After reading the IGN article and hearing some of the gameplay improvements and things they've made, specifically with the seasons, that gets me much more excited than just the trailer. The trailer, I'm like, yeah, it'll be interesting. But hearing the gameplay improvements, stuff like in winter, guards change their paths because they don't want to be out in the cold. Hearing that, like, if you walk on the roof and the icicles fall, it can alert enemies. Hearing that when windstorms are blowing, it changes the volume that the guards can hear, so you can be a little bit faster and run more. Like, that gets me much more excited than the cinematic trailer that doesn't really tell you a whole lot. He took my thing.